The next subheading called Japan as an imperialist power in our series of great books, enjoying great books. Our book is History of Civilization Part 2 by Arjun Dev Sir. It's an NCRT, old NCRT book, very effective book, deep book. Next subheading is Japan as an imperialist power. Japan started on a program of imperialist expansion the last decade of the 19th century. Last decade of the 19th century, that is 1890. Western countries had tried to establish their foothold there. In 1853, American warships under Commodore Perry had, after a show of force, compelled the Japanese to open their country to American shipping and trade. This was followed by similar agreements by Japan with Britain, Holland, France, and Russia. However, Japan escaped the experience and fate of other Asian countries. In 1867, after a change in government known as Meiji Restoration, Japan began to modernize her economy. Within a few decades, she became one of the most industrialized countries of the world. But the forces that made many of the Western countries imperialist were also active in the case of Japan. Japan had few raw materials to support her industries, so she looked for lands that had them and for markets to sell her manufactured goods. China provided ample opportunities for Japan's imperialist designs. You have already read of the war between China and Japan over Korea in 1894. After this, Japan's influence in China increased. The Anglo Japanese Treaty of 1902 recognized her as a power of equal standing with the great European powers. In 1905, 4 to 5, she defeated Russia. As a result of this war, the southern half of Sakhalin was ceded to Japan. Japan also gained control of the southern part of the Liao Tang Peninsula with Port Arthur, which was leased to her. In 1910, Korea became a colony of Japan. When the First World War began in 1914, Japan could look back with some pride at her record of the last 50 years. She had become a great power and could expand further at the cost of China if the Western powers would only allow her to do so. However, her record was, if anything, worse than the Western imperialists. In fact, Japan's rise as an imperialist power helped to show that imperialism was not limited to any one people or region. That's very interesting. See, everybody would like to be imperialist. Rather, it was a result of greed. Rather, it was the result of greed for economic and political power, which could distort the policy of any country, regardless of its race or cultural claims. To sum up, almost all of Asia had been swallowed up by the imperialist countries by the early years of the 20th century. Next big heading is imperialism in Africa. You have already read in chapter 4, volume 1, about the emergence of civilization and the formation of states, kingdoms, and empires in different parts of Africa. You have also read about the contacts which African cultures and civilizations had with the rest of the world since ancient times, from the time of European explorations in the later part of the 15th century. A new phase began in the history of some parts of Africa. Besides the establishment of commercial relations with some parts of Africa, this phase was characterized by slave trade. As mentioned earlier, till about the last quarter of the 19th century, European control over Africa extended over about one fifth. European control over Africa extended over about one fifth of the territory of the continent. However, within a few years, almost the entire continent was partitioned among various European imperialist countries, though it took them much longer to establish their actual effective occupation. Slave trade is a subheading. The European penetration of Africa from the late 15th century onwards was confined for a long time mainly to certain coastal areas. However, even these limited contacts led to the most tragic and disastrous consequences for the people of Africa. One of the first results of these contacts was a purchase and sale of people, the slave trade. The Spanish rule in the Americas had resulted in the large scale extermination of the original inhabitants of the Americas. The Portuguese had established a slave market in Lisbon, and the Spaniards bought slaves from there and took them to their colonies in the Americas to work there. African villages were raided by slave traders, and people were captured and handed over to the European traders. Earlier, the Arabs had dominated the slave trade. Subsequently, some African chiefs also took part in the slave trade by trading slaves in exchange for firearms, which the European traders sold to them. The Europeans themselves also raided the villages and enslaved the people who were then transported. When the demand for slaves in America increased, they were sent directly from Africa by the traders. The trade in African slaves was started by the Portuguese. Soon the English took over. In 1562, Sir John Hawkins, a rich English merchant who was known to be very religious, went on his first voyage to Africa to bring slaves in a ship called Jesus. The reigning English monarch, Elizabeth I, received a share of the profits that Hawkins made in selling the slaves that he had brought. In the 17th century, a regular company received a charter from the King of England for purposes of trade in slaves. Later, Spain gave the monopoly of slave trade with her possessions in America to England. The share of the king in the profits from slave trade was fixed at 25%. So this is a terrible thing. Now, here we'll stop. In the next video, we'll continue this chapter.